You're listening to Systemic Era Podcast. The failure was designed.
Lindsey Graham dies after a brief and sudden illness, based on an article by Benito L. Kelty. The Senate's gerontocratic script ended in a hospital call. A death notice, not an accounting. The source gives us a bare announcement, longtime sen. Lindsey Graham is dead after a brief and sudden illness, with police scanner order reportedly pointing to cardiac arrest. It adds that he had just returned from Kyiv, was due on Meet the Press, was running for re-election against Democrat Annie Andrews, and that his condition landed in the same gossip cloud as Mitch McConnell's. That is the whole public frame, condolences, itinerary, speculation. It is a thin political story for a man who spent decades inside the machinery of national power. Power did not belong to the bystanders. The people who matter here are not the unnamed emergency responders or the family asking for privacy. The institutional power sat with Graham himself, a longtime senator, a Republican incumbent, a fixture of the upper chamber since 2002 after arriving in the House in 1994. He was not her symbolic figure. He was part of the governing class that shaped war policy, judicial power, immigration politics, and the Senate's own grinding procedural choke points. The source also makes clear that this was not a retired elder on the margins. He was still in an active re-election race.
That matters.
It means the system had not actually moved on from him. It was still asking voters to ratify the same durable political class, just with a new campaign cycle stapled on. Kyiv and Sunday shows are the performance of legitimacy. The last details attached to Graham are revealing. He had just come back from Kyiv after meeting Volodymyr Zelensky. He was scheduled to appear on Meet the Press. That is not incidental color. It is the modern ritual of Senate power. Fly to a war zone to signal seriousness, then return to the Sunday show circuit to convert that performance into domestic authority. This is how political legitimacy is packaged now. The work is not just governing. It is appearing governable. It is branding. It is insulation. The camera does not show policy consequences. It shows the senator as a living credential. The real subject is the aging regime. The article gestures toward McConnell's condition, and that is not a digression. It is the system speaking in its own language: fear, fragility, succession anxiety. American governance has been trapped inside a gerontocracy so entrenched that the public is expected to treat the collapse of aging power brokers as normal background noise. That is the deeper pattern here. The Senate has become a chamber where long tenure is mistaken for wisdom, where decline is hidden behind titles, and where the public is asked to accept that men can remain central to national decision-making until the very end. The problem is not merely age. It is the institutional culture that keeps rewarding permanence, even as permanence curdles into inertia and dependence. The source framing evades the politics. The article treats Graham's death as a private shark with a few political footnotes attached. That is the wrong emphasis. A senator is not just a person with a family and a privacy request. He is a node in a power structure. When one of them exits, the relevant question is not only who mourns, but what coalition loses leverage, what agenda loses an operator, and how much of the public record was built on the late-stage performance of competence. There is no need for false civility here. Graham was not a neutral institution. He was an active participant in a political order that runs on hard power, strategic media appearances, and the expectation that voters will confuse endurance with legitimacy. What this actually says about the system. This story is not mainly about one man's death. It is about a political class that keeps itself in office long after it has become visibly brittle, then asks the public to treat that brittleness as normal. The result is a democracy that is always one health bulletin away from a succession drummer. That is the larger lesson. American politics does not merely tolerate entrenched power. It worships it, markets it, and then acts surprised when their arrangement starts to fail in public. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Roar's story for today's article. With the automated voice of Rizat, thanks for listening.